Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first ever Etsy Up After Show. We hope you enjoyed Etsy Up. Thanks for coming over to the Etsy Up After Show. We're going to be diving deeper into holiday trends, category insights, fresh inventory ideas. And the best part is that we're also going to be taking questions live from our seller community. So my name is Isabella and I work on Etsy's community team and I will be moderating our panel today. I'm joined by a few of my wonderful colleagues, three of the most knowledgeable and, as we just determined here in the room, stylish people who work at Etsy. Thank you all for being here. We have senior leaders from the merchandising team, Rachel, Mary, and we also have the one, the only Etsy's trend expert, Dana Isom Johnson. And in addition to all of our sellers who are tuning in virtually, we also have a very large group of sellers with us here in the audience today. So exciting. Can I get a woo? So happy to have you all here. This is so incredible that we were able to have everyone come in and watch Etsy Up with us live in person. It's been a really fun day so far. So again, thank you so much for being here. This panel is going to run for about 30 minutes. So let's jump right in. Panelists, can you each introduce yourself, share what you do here at Etsy, and then just to kind of get the ball rolling before we jump into the Q&A here with our live audience, as well as our sellers who are tuning in virtually, can you just share like 1 to 2 things that are top of mind for you right now when we think about trends? Like what's like the one thing you want to make sure sellers know or take away? We'll start with you, Dana.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Again, my name is Dana Isom Johnson. I'm the trend expert here at Etsy. So it's my job to basically marry what shoppers are searching for versus what our sellers are creating, and then serve it on a pretty little platter for the media and show it off very sparkling and dazzling. So right now, we are in the thick. We're about to enter into holiday season and holiday hosting. It is a marathon season that we're about to enter, right? So I think one thing that I really wanted to share with you guys today, one thing that I do is put out a trend report from my team, right? And so I wanted to give you a little sneak peek into one trend that's going to be within the trend edit that, again, we'll be announcing in October. But this one trend is called, can I get a little drum roll? Supper Club. So we're talking about dinner parties, but at a whole nother level. They are being elevated. Shoppers are really wanting to showcase every single detail of these intimate gatherings and putting lots of attention into it. So what does that mean for you guys? That means add on all those personalization details, add in all the razzle dazzle that you can that will bring these elevated dinner parties really to life. The other thing that I wanted to bring up were 2 trends that I talked about earlier in the spring that are still very much having a moment right now. The one is Literary Girl. When I announced this earlier in spring, one piece of data that we included in it was that 20,000 purchases made on Etsy per day included a book-related item. So this means that people are really back into reading actual tactile books and creating events around them. As we move into the fall, cozy, chilly season, those parties are going to remain and people are going to continue thinking about that. The other trend that's still very top of mind is galactic metallic. So yes, we're talking about all of those really beautiful, shimmery, sparkling metallics. Don't be afraid to mix those metals. And also that includes zodiac inspired items as well. Lots of things that are involved around space in general are heavily influencing shoppers and are really inspiring them to incorporate into their purchases, right? The last thing that I wanted to mention was that one thing that really sets our marketplace apart from any other brand, especially within my world when I'm sharing that pretty little platter of items to the press, is that we are sharing real-time data. So any piece of data that I'm sharing with you guys or with the press, this is what people are shopping for in real time, and it really inspires them and shows them what's exciting and what people are engaging with.
Thanks, Dana. I was going to say, we have to wait till October, but I know it's because like we're getting the latest statistics.
That's right.
So that's great.
And October's in like 3 days.
That's true.
Yeah.
Did you know it's already September? All right, Mary, how about you?
I was gonna say it's right around the corner. Thanks, Isabella. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I'm feeling a little starstruck in front of all of you all. My name is Mary. I lead the merchandising team here at Etsy. Our job is really understanding what buyers want. So a lot of the data that Dana was just referencing and making sure that our sellers' items are elevated in front of the right buyer at the right time for what they're looking for. Dana also mentioned holiday is right around the corner. So my team is heads down in holiday right now. Gifting is very top of mind for us. Personalization is a really big differentiator on Etsy. Buyers love personalization. There's lots of different forms of personalization and ways you can customize your items for buyers. Pet portraits are really big, like a big breakout trend this year. We think they have staying power. So pet portraits, I think, would be a big one. November and December are also peak engagement season. So if you are a wedding seller in jewelry, you know this is a big, huge rush for you too. I think if you're not in those categories, you can translate that into engagement-related gifts. Right after the engagement, folks are looking for those giftable ideas, which kind of leads into like milestones. Etsy buyers love milestones, commemorating those. Ornaments are really big for us. So think about those big firsts, your first year engaged, your first year married, your new home, your first pet, baby's first Christmas, translates all across the board. So just think about how to put a spin there. In terms of standing out, if you offer gift wrap, if you offer a handwritten note, if you're willing to ship directly to the recipient, call those things out in your listing, add a little seasonal flair, sprig of greenery, bows, make your listings pop with a little holiday sparkle. And just calling out that convenience could be like a make or break decision for a last minute shopper or someone who's looking for a little bit of convenience.
That's great. Thank you for calling out the milestones too, because I know
Oh, yeah.
we're also focused on like those winter holidays that are coming up, but really it is such a special time, like Q4. So much going on. Yeah. How about you, Rachel?
Lots of bursts.
I'm Rachel. I'm on the merchandising team with Mary. I study a lot of buyer behaviors that are happening within our shopping app features. And one of the trends that I've noticed really resonating are vintage and vintage inspired items. I feel like buyers are looking for items that have like a story to them. They have a little bit of character, like a little bit of warmth. On the vintage side of, or on the jewelry side of the house, we're seeing designs like Art Deco make a comeback. And also these like statement rings, definitely within the jewelry category. And then in the home space, we're seeing buyers definitely resonate with like original vintage art and collectibles. And then related to vintage, we're also seeing a trend around quilting and patchwork. It's a neat way for buyers to shop sustainably because a lot of sellers are using leftover fabrics to make some of these items. And in terms of inventory, this can be applied across home, accessories, even clothing. I've even seen some really cool vests. So those are the two trends I think I'm really excited about right now.
Thanks, Rachel. It's great. I feel like, yeah, so many insights right there, like so much for us to already think about. But today we're here to address your questions. So folks in the room, I hope you're thinking about your trend questions, your burning inventory questions, because we've got the experts here today. We also have a live chat happening. So folks who are virtually joining us are submitting their questions in the chat right now. The Q&A is officially open. So if you're virtually watching, you can head to the Q&A tab. You can submit a question there. We may not be able to get to every single question, but please do upvote the ones that you want to make sure you see answered, and we'll do our best. Also, folks in the room, if you have a question, feel free to just raise your hand. And Abby, she's got a microphone. She's going to run over to you, and she will be able to quickly just, hand you a mic. I do have one question. I'm going to just start us out here before we turn it over. Like just while people are thinking of their questions, I have one question that I want to just like, it's a softball. I just want to like get the ball rolling a little bit. Colors. Is there a color, any shades that we want sellers to be thinking about? I know it was all about lime cream earlier this year, and then we saw butter yellow having a moment, but we're transitioning into fall now. Holiday is upon us. Like, what are the colors that sellers should be aware of?
I think one color, especially for the fall that's coming up, is burgundy. One of the things that I really love about my job is kind of sourcing the why behind the trend, right? So if we look at previous years, like last year, around this same time, red was having such a major moment. You saw it across home accessories, accessories within fashion, full red looks. So now this burgundy is an evolution of that red. So we're not seeing the red quite die out yet, but it's a rich, deep version of that red that we saw last year. The other thing that I really like about this burgundy is that it lends itself delightfully to our lime cream that we talked about earlier this year, as well as with the buttercup yellow. So it's nice to again see these evolution of the colors, but then see how they pair very nicely with colors that had a major moment earlier in the year.
I think also to add, I'm also noticing, like you were talking about rich tones, like this rich green resonating with buyers. I think connected to like vintage jewelry, we're seeing things like jade, peridot, these like really rich colors resonate. And I actually think it's also tied to this wedding season that's coming up too.
And I also think I would love to encourage you guys, and another major part of what I do is following the cultural zeitgeist and seeing what's happening in the outside world that then affects how people are purchasing. So think about titles that are coming out in the movies. Think about people who are getting married very soon in the public eye, and just take a look at some of the choices that they're making, and it will likely affect how people are shopping as well.
Subtle. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Burgundy and green. I love both those colors. That's great. We actually have a question in the room already. I saw Andy's hand pop up. So yeah, Andy, go ahead.
Hi, so I'm a vintage seller and I always struggle with knowing exactly when I should put my vintage Christmas items in my shop. I mean, I know people buy Christmas all year round, but I don't want my shop to feel like a Christmas store when it's summertime. And so what would you guys advise in terms of the data of when peak is for shopping for Christmas decor?
Put them in now. You can always merchandise them to the, the back of your shop. And then as you get closer to that season, sort of position them forward. We start to see searches for holiday begin with decor. So start with those really like decor items, which are like really rich in the vintage category. Pick up in August, start to pick up in September, and then really start to increase in early October. And by mid-November, that's where we're kind of peaking for holiday decor. And then we move really into that like peak gifting phase. But I think a tip for, not only buyers that are searching for that type of item, like publications and brands and companies are planning their holiday campaigns longer lead. So if you have those holiday items available and in your shop in those summer months, it's more discoverable for teams planning for those types of things and getting picked up when it's time for those kinds of features.
So you're saying it's never too early?
Never. I feel like just across the industry, Christmas trees in general sell out in October.
Yes.
You can never get,
Yeah.
And I mean, when you think about the media, even though our print as we know it is slowly kind of fading from the glory that it once had, right? But those magazines would plan for holiday issues in July because of the time period that it would take for it to go to print. But when we're talking about mainstream media that's happening in the now, those stories are really going live in October. So it's very aligned with the planning process of a brand versus when journalists are wanting to talk about the season as well.
Thank y'all. All right, now I'm going to switch over to the chat, which is popping off. Lots of questions here. So I'm going to just jump in right here. Okay. I create nursery decor, and I'm wondering if there is an animal that is really popular or one that you think will be trending. Animals. Are there any trending animals?
I'm happy to jump in here. Yes. I love this question. Okay. Like off Etsy, on Etsy, there's like three big, I would say like animal nursery trends. You have your like jungle safari animals, your sea creatures. I love the sea creatures. You have Then you have your woodland friends. So think of these as like the classics. They're not going anywhere. How do you want to like translate those with a really unique spin material, sort of like fresh design? Those will capture kind of your broad-based searches. One of the things I love about Etsy buyers, though, is they really are looking for some of those more like niche, really amazing personal items. So one of my favorite trends in nursery right now is some more of the like mythical creatures like dragons or unicorns. You were talking about galactic, like space is another like fun nursery trend. It's not necessarily an animal. And then we have a lot of like dog lovers, lots of pet lovers in general, but we skew like dog friendly. I mentioned the pet portraits. So, ways to weave in, personal pets there. And then I think just beyond animals, some of the trending motifs that we're seeing in nursery that have really like caught my eye is just that like scalloped shape. You're probably seeing a lot of the scalloped shape. There's beautiful scalloped shelves, picture frames, pillows, hard and soft goods, and you had mentioned bows. That bow motif is a really sweet detail for nurseries we see too.
Coquette.
Yes,
Messy
Messy
coquette.
Baby
One
coquette.
thing I wanted to add to that, Mary, you talking about pets. I think one really interesting that I have only seen on Etsy trend is involving your pet as the theme of the nursery. So let's say like Isabella's dog's name is Pepper. So, and she's a beautiful black and white little dotted sweetheart. Working with an Etsy seller to create those custom pieces of art for the nursery that's based all around Pepper, so that it really feels like not only it's personalized and custom to your space, but it also involves the family member, the fur family member in the space to really make it feel special.
Pepper would love that. That's great. Thank you. Okay, I've got a few more questions. Folks in the room, if you have a question, feel free to. Oh, yay. Okay, we have a question in the room.
Hi.
Hi,
Uh,
Naomi.
One thing that's come
Is
up
that Maggie?
recently,
Yeah.
Maggie, yes.
Hey, Maggie.
One thing that's come up recently is gift wrap. You'd mentioned it. I have it turned on in my shop and along with gift messages, and I hadn't been receiving any gift wrap or gift messages recently, and I didn't think much of it until I had a buyer tell me they couldn't find it in my shop. And then I talked to some other Etsy sellers, and they were saying they're having the same issue. They have gift wrapping turned on the shop, but buyers can't find it. And we even checked each other's shops and could not find it in each other's shops. And I know this has been reported. Is it being worked on to get it fixed before the holidays?
Yeah, I do know that gift wrap is top of mind for the team. So that's a great flag. Yeah, I'll definitely take that one back to the team.
Yeah, that's a great flag. I would also add, if you do offer gift wrap, like put it in a photo, in a listing image as buyers are scrolling through to signal that too. Right.
That's a great flag,
Yeah,
Maggie. Thank you
you.
for flagging that. We'll definitely take that back to the team. I think it might have moved around. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna hop back to the chat. This is fun, code switching. Okay. All right, yay, we have a vintage question. All right, what vintage items should sellers be on the hunt for? Last year it was rattan bags, cabbage plates. Is there something that vintage sellers should be specifically looking for right now?
I can chime in. I'm really noticing brass figurines is a thing that our buyers are really looking for, and these brass figurines can be like sailboats, swans, birds, elephants, like all different like kind of classic timeless items. And then when they're vintage, they have a little bit of like wear and tear on them, which I think our buyers are really loving in terms of like updating their home.
That's great. Anything else?
Yeah, you were talking about colors earlier. I feel like there's been a resurgence in that like blue and white combo across ceramics, kind of a nod to that grand millennial theme that has that sort of like classic nostalgia to it. We had touched on engagement rings. Engagement rings are one of our fastest growing categories in vintage right now. So if you see one of those at an estate sale or in your hunts, don't pass one of those up. And then in home as well, seeing a resurgence in kind of that Jenny Lind style furniture. So think some of the like spindle beds or spindle chairs, or like bobbin stools, that the bobbins sort of translate outside of vintage too, and seeing some really cool variations on custom frames, like picture frames. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, digital. Oh, okay. Yes, we'll get David. We'll get to your question in a minute. I have one about digital right here. Okay, how would you suggest that sellers offering digital products should be leaning into trends right now? I feel like it might depend like what you sell digitally, like if it's art or invites, but any overarching thoughts there?
So I think one really cool thing about digital prints specifically for the holiday season, at least again from my lens, is that I am always encouraging people that, especially digital art, this is a way for people to do a quick refresh of their home without breaking the bank. So it's a quick swap out. It's a great gift, especially for last minute folks. And so it's a really easy, but not letting go of the fact that it's special and that it adds character and interest to someone's home as a gift. And it's great for last minute shopping.
I also would add for, I had mentioned like the quilting and patchwork trend earlier. Digital downloads are a great way to tap into that trend too. So I think there's ways to like kind of get creative and like find your way in with some of the digital downloads.
Thank you. All right, we have a question in the room. David?
Hi. So I make fine jewelry and I have a pretty defined style, defined materials. So I found it always pretty difficult to utilize anything to do with trends. And so I just wondered if you had any advice on how I could maybe utilize the concept of trends within my kind of defined process.
So I think one thing that Rachel talked about earlier is this rise that we've seen pretty recently in green gemstones, peridot, emeralds, all of these green stones that are fine jewelry. This is a perfect moment for you to really incorporate that. However, if you don't want to lead with the trend, and I always say this too, like, you don't have to follow a trend. I encourage you to be true to what your shop is, what you make, but use trends instead as the backgrounds of your photos. Use it for other purposes that don't have to be your exact item, that are still lending the message of the trend, but you don't have to fully go with it. And also, if the trend doesn't work for you, don't do it. It's this, you know what I mean? It's not a rule book that you have to follow this. These are simple suggestions that if it works for your shop, then use it, or use it as color backgrounds.
100%. 100%. I think like everyone in this room and dialing in as a seller, like you all are the ones that are setting the trends. And across the industry, people are looking to Etsy for what's fresh and what's new. You can use trends again to bring fresh new spins on your items. But really, I think we saw in the video, I love the quote of like, invest in what's unique that you're doing. I think like, again, what differentiates Etsy is that creativity that you're bringing, the inspiration that you have. So I think if the trends don't feel in context for you, but you have that creative spark and that inspiration, lean in there and think about challenging yourself to introduce that new item on a regular cadence or expand your line. I think as we think about the jewelry category in particular too, we are seeing growth in what we call demi-fine jewelry, which is our finer materials. So I think this is what you specialize in, but would say to everyone here and that's tuned in the jewelry space, don't be afraid to use those higher quality materials that are longer lasting and durable. We really see buyers looking to us for that, and everyday jewelry and sort of like fresh new spins there. Yeah.
Can I add one more thing? I think the other thing within the jewelry space that's really interesting is, like I mentioned, vintage and also vintage inspired. So there's other things that you can apply within jewelry where maybe if it's like a polished finish, or if it looks like it's been, like formed together by hand, I think even that could be like a little bit storytelling. So it could even come in that way where it's like how it's actually produced could be applied.
Great question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, we have a question in the room. No? Okay, never mind. They took their hand down. Okay, let's go back to our chat then. All right. Do you have any trends or tips for kids' printables outside of seasonally themed items? So more evergreen. Kids printables.
I am happy. I'm totally happy to chime in. So I, like many parents on Etsy, leverage the like learning in school category in terms of printables. I think you said outside the context of seasonal, but seasonal does come into play a lot with printables. Think about DIY kits, activities around giftable holidays. We see a lot of like DIY cards. Think about like templates where someone can put their children's fingerprints on, or handprints, and make really cute seasonal shapes. We do see a lot of that. Again, like another seasonal tip, but we see a lot of last minute downloadable kids activities, like placemats, or a large roll of like coloring sheet that you can open up if you're hosting and you have children over to keep them busy. But yeah, learning in school worksheets in my house.
That's great. That's great. Okay, jumping back over to in the room here. Let's go Naomi and then Andy. Does that work?
Hi. So
Hey,
in
Naomi.
the past, hi, you guys, Etsy has advertised, going into the Christmas holidays and Hanukkah and the gift giving season. And then usually there's kind of a slump afterwards. But you also in the past have advertised during the Olympics, which is kind of post holiday. What are you anticipating coming forward as far as promoting Etsy? And are there things that sellers need to look out for, in particular? Like I said, I know in the past you've advertised Olympics. Do you see a bump up in that time frame? And, is there something where in a time of year we'd usually be scaling back, where we might need to scale up or be prepared to see some growth in an unseasonable time of year?
So yes. So one thing that I get very excited about for the end of the year is our release of the color of the year. So we typically do that towards the end of the year to get people excited to what's to come for the following year, and also really get a temperature gauge as how we think buyers are going to be reacting to the upcoming year. The other thing that my team and I also focus on is that the top of the year is also really dedicated to fresh starts, new you, spring cleaning. And I think that's something that your team focuses on as well. So what are those storage solutions? What are those ways that you can easily refresh your home? Do you offer beauty products? If so, like what are those kind of rejuvenating things that you can offer? So my suggestion would be new year, new you, spring cleaning, new color of the year to really set the tone.
And I think it just depends too, like what category you're in, what you're selling. Like there are things that are a little more seasonal, and then there's things that are trending year round.
I think too, I'll also add that, the buyer, they shift their mindset throughout the year, right? So like November, December, it's all about gifting. And like you just said, it's like Jan 1, everyone's like, okay, I got to get all my life together because everything's a mess from the holidays. And then it's like Valentine's Day, and then it's spring. So it's some of these like retail moments can be the same year after year. And then I think what you were referencing to, some of these bigger, larger cultural events, I think internally we think about, what were some of the things that we experienced as a business, last time when this happened, and what can we predict this time around that might be different? So it's like kind of marrying the two of them together.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, Andy.
So this might be a good end then. What is flaming out in terms of trends? Because we don't want to double down on a trend and then it go away really quickly. So
It's like, give it to me straight. Might have to think about that one for a second. Yeah.
I would need a little bit of time. to think on that. Because I think the other thing that sometimes people confuse is a trend versus a fad, right? Like trends, yes, they kind of slow down, whereas a fad just like halt stops. Like one that comes to mind from last year. Remember Brat Girl Summer? We all had a big moment with Brat Girl Summer. That green, that very aggressive green, was here for just like a short amount of time. We remember that, right? But then also you think about how these things evolve, right? So that brat green that had a very specific moment in time, then translated to our beautiful lime cream that came the following year. That was a much more subtle tone that brought a little bit more calmness. So I think we still have a bit of time to see what's kind of phasing out. Or another example is that bold red that we saw last year, right? Like you stopped seeing a lot of the bold red, but then you started transitioning into this much more velvety burgundy tone. So we'll see. And I think one thing we really like to explore is sharing those numbers when that does happen. We've done that before in Etsy Success together, Isabella and I. So maybe we will take that back as a piece of content that we can start sharing more.
One thing that I think is, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
The other thing I was just going to add is I think like, there's a trend curve. So like you were saying, Dana, there's some things where they spike and then they kind of like teeter off a little bit. And then I think what we're always on the lookout for, what are the trends that are kind of picking up, gaining momentum, they're continuing onward. And those are the things that we want to bring to our sellers, right? So I think that's definitely an action item for us, is to make sure that we're like communicating to say like, okay, this is like a quick trend to like action on, or like this one's going to be here for a little while.
What's sticky and like what's just a quick like flash in the pan. Yeah.
I'll add, I think it definitely depends on the category, what that life cycle of the trend curve is. Some of our faster moving categories are clothing and jewelry, for example, in that like under $50 price point. So it's more important, I would say, to stay on that annual cycle of offering new arrivals, fresh designs, first to market designs. If you're, selling t-shirts or hoodies or, comfort wear, and in that aspect, personalized jewelry again is really big and another fast moving, I think, space for us. So it's important to think about how are you translating that personalization in your jewelry from year to year so that it feels fresh.
One thing, like from the shop optimization perspective, because you all know that's my world, long listing titles are out. Buyer friendly, clear, easy to read listing titles are in. That was something we went over in Etsy Up earlier. But no, in all seriousness, this was awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. This was such a fun and informative conversation. Thank you everyone in the room with us who is participating today. Like, it's so great to take live questions, and everyone watching virtually, we're so glad you tuned in to our first ever Etsy Up After Show. If you'd like to continue getting trend tips and learn more about marketplace insights, be sure to follow us on Etsy Success on Instagram. And I think also we have, do you want to do one more plug for the trend guide?
It's coming out in October, so mark your calendars. And again, please follow Etsy Success on Instagram. We'll be dropping more and more early arrivals and a full look at the trends.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you.